Welcome to a Guzzling Gourmet baking session. We're going to make some cookies. Okay, it's been a little while since I made some cookies. These, while I was preparing some or researching some previous recipes that I've done, I come across by Cupcake Gemma, the boy who bakes, and I saw some rather nice looking Brownie Crinkle Cookies. So I'm going to follow his recipe, and we're going to make some of them. Okay, now to get the actual effect that we want, this crinkle effect that's still moist inside, time is critical. Okay, so we need to have everything ready to go. So I've got 2 baking trays lined with paper ready to go. This should make around about 10 cookies, so the trays should be the right size. We don't want stuff leaving and lying around waiting to go into the oven or waiting to be, you know, spooned out for the second lot. It's all got to be done in one hit, if you like. We're going to have to prepare some ingredients, so weighed out, and also do some certain things with them. Okay, now what we need to get done at some point is get the oven, or so I should say, you need the oven up to 160 on fan. Okay, so we want some butter. So I've got some butter here, 125 grams of unsalted butter, and then I've got 200 grams of dark chocolate. Well, actually, I only had about 180 grams of dark chocolate, so there's a little bit of milk chocolate in there as well, just pad it out. Now they're going to go in with the butter. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to get the butter onto a pan and get that melted down. Okay, now we don't start combining anything until that's melted down, so I'll put that on in a second. So just to give you a heads up, you want 150 grams of cast sugar, 100 grams of soft brown sugar, 2 large eggs, 130 grams of plain flour, which we need to sieve, 3 tablespoons of dark cocoa powder, preferably the Dutch, but if you buy it in the UK, apparently that is the same thing anyway. It's just they call it the Dutch process version in America. That wants to be sieved through. We want a tablespoon of baking powder sieved through, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you want, just as a little topping, some flakes of salt or some larger chunks of salt, which we'll sprinkle on the top. So that's what you're going to need. I'm going to do it with a little hand mixer rather than get the big stand mixer out for this one. So I'm going to get that one to melt, and then I'll talk you through the next steps. So I'm going to put my flour into the sieve, okay, and we're going to sieve that into a bowl, simply because we want to get all our dry ingredients all mixed together, ready to the blend in with everything. Okay, baking powder, like I said, that go in there the same, just sieve that through, make sure there's no lumps in that, and the dark cocoa powder, in that goes as well, and we just sieve that through, and our salt, I'm just going to chuck the salt in there because that won't go through that sieve. Okay, and as you can see, there's some lumps of baking powder. It's probably more likely you're going to get lumps in your cocoa, but there we go. That's in there, and then all we're going to do is we're just going to mix all that together, get that nicely combined. So we're going to have the butter chocolate mixture melted and ready to go. We've got our dry ingredients, apart from the sugars, ready to go. Okay, so in the bowl we're going to do all our mixing in. I'm adding in that soft brown sugar, and I'm going to put the eggs. I'm going to put that caster sugar in there. Okay, so all we're going to do now is add the eggs, but I'm not going to do that until I've got this melted down. Okay, I've got my whisk ready to go. So like I say, what we've got to do is everything is temperature and time critical. So when this is ready, we've got our dry ingredients ready, we will then whisk in, we will combine the sugars along with the eggs for 5 minutes exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna pause while I get that melted. So my chocolate's melted and I've just put that to one side, and we're now going to add them eggs. So like I said, 2 eggs, and then we're going to whisk together that 5 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer and whisk these together, and in that time the chocolate mixture should have cooled down so that we'll be ready to blend it in with that. Okay, so that's had exactly 5 minutes. What we're now going to do is we're now going to tip our chocolate mixture in, and then we're just going to give that another quick mix for about another minute. Okay, before we're then ready to add in that just dry ingredients. So just give that a quick mix through. So now we take our sieved dry ingredients, in they go, and we're now just going to mix these in, not too much, okay. We'll use a spatula just at the end just to make sure it's all fully mixed in. So I've given that a good mix round. Now I've got an ice cream scoop, not the best of ones to use for this, but probably about the only one I've got. I'm going to scoop up a scoopful, and then because this is quite runny, it's sort of a matter of getting it over and then trying, he says unsuccessfully, just to release that onto the paper. Okay, this will spread quite a bit, so you need to leave plenty of room around each one, and we're just going to then get these out onto the paper, about 4 or 5 per tray. So they're ready to go in the oven, so shove them in the oven for 12 minutes, okay, and then we'll whip them out, and they need to cool a lot. So that's 12 minutes. So there we go, out the oven they come. You can see there how they've nicely domed, gone all crinkly, which is exactly what we want. And we now leave them on these trays. We don't attempt to move them right now because they're going to be exceptionally soft. So we're just going to leave them for about 25 to 30 minutes before we can then lift them off and let them cool completely on a wire rack. So there you are. I can't taste them in a minute, too hot. Our Brownie Crinkle Cookies, courtesy of the boy who bakes. So here we go. These are still obviously quite warm. We've got to be careful with them because they're still going to be quite soft. Okay, you can see on the paper underneath there, still quite moist. Okay, so we better try one, reckon we? I was waiting till one breaks in half, and I thought, well, we'll have to try that one, won't we? That one feels a bit delicate. So there we go. So it's still obviously a bit warm yet, but we can break it open. It's soft still, so we still need to let it cool a little bit longer, but you can see it's quite, well, pretty kind of moist inside. Very chocolatey. So we've got that crisp outer, lovely moist chocolate inside. This is how we want to keep it. What I forgot to put on before I put it in the oven was a sprinkle of that salt. Because the salt and chocolate would have gone quite nicely, but well, mine just tastes all right.